Thank you, Jack. That song gave me goosebumps. Did anybody else get that? God bumps, call this. Oh, yeah, so we'll be talking about that, how to have more peace in our hearts and our lives and bring it to the world today. First, I want to share with you a story about a minister who dropped in on one of his congregants unexpectedly, and she had just baked an apple pie, and she apologized to her minister that she was out of cheese because she knew he liked it with cheese on top. And her young son just quietly left the table and then came back with a little piece of cheese and placed it on his plate. And the minister said, "Oh, kiddo, you have sharper eyes than your mom." He pops it in his mouth. And he says, "Where'd you find it?" And he beams, "In the mousetrap." So how do we keep our peace when the unexpected happens, when someone moves our cheese? I had that experience this morning as I had the road closures for the marathon. Does anybody else run into that? Yeah, the road was closed and then 101 was closed. And it's like, Spirit, you were so funny. We're talking about peace today when things come up. When I share this with my minister friends, one of them said, "Why don't you give a talk on how to find the love of your life and be a billionaire and live in bliss all the time?" We just might do that. Oh boy. So we are in this holiday weekend where we just honor the great soul, Martin Luther King Jr., and, just kind of really remember that truth that he inspired and the truth that he brings out in us to envision a world where all people are respected and have equal treatment and honored in their divinity, that we stay in the we versus the division. Okay, we might get all kinds of practice today, right? I realized as I was a little bit losing my peace this morning with the dead end and then going around another dead end, I realized what was happening was my habit of perfectionism. Like, oh no, I can't be late, So, but it comes and it goes. So, we bless him for beautifying the space. Why he's working on Sunday, I don't know. We bless him. So as Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder of Unity, used to say, I love this. She says, her affirmation was to center herself. I am centered and poised in the Christ mind, and nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. And isn't that the truth? When we center into the Christ, poised, I like that word, poised in the Christ presence. Because that implies centeredness, that we are right here, poised in the Christ. Nothing can disturb the calm peace of your soul. So I think I'll write that down and put it on my dashboard.
Lessons in truth.
Yes. So today we're also looking through the lens of a spiritual practice called the Season for Peace and Nonviolence. How many of you have done that program before? A couple of people. Where it inspires us to imagine peace in 64 ways in 64 days. 64 days and 64 ways to imagine peace. And we have these booklets that there are a few today, but we'll bring more tomorrow, that you can take home and do the practice. It begins at the end of the month. but I thought this was a good day to, introduce it again and invite us into imagining peace for 64 days. So this fits into our unity principles as well. Attuning to that one presence, that one power, being willing and looking for the Christ in each person, even if they're not demonstrating it or they're not aware of it. Just holding that space for it to reveal itself, to come forth. We know the magnetic ability of our thoughts and emotions to create our world that can be a heaven or a hell, no matter depending on what we focus on and give our energy to, right? And I love that our vision and our mission tie into creating heaven on earth. And the baby says, amen. You're doing a great job, Mom. Doing a great. Let's send her some love. Thank you. Thank you for being here and bringing your light and your beacon of light. So we can take these affirmations, these 64 little spiritual nuggets, and take them into prayer and let them guide us on how to be in the world for these upcoming months. So we know that spiritual growth is a continual process, right? If we're still on the planet, we're still growing. We're still learning. Because God is always expanding within us to express more through us those divine qualities of love, of peace, of wisdom, of joy. And another name for God is wholeness. Wholeness, nothing missing, wholeness. And God is wholeness. The principle of wholeness is always at work. So right now, if there's any area of your life that doesn't feel peaceful or settled or reconciled, just know that this is a temporary state toward the experiencing more wholeness, toward healing and experiencing more wholeness. So we attune to our wholeness today. Holiness. The Holy Spirit is the whole Spirit of God. The whole Spirit of God working in us, working in our lives. So this is always at work within us. And we can tune it out or tune in. We can resist it or say, okay, I don't understand it, but yeah, let's do it. And it is intelligent. An intelligent, divine mind is intelligent. It knows what to do when, what to reveal, what to heal, to bring that expression of wholeness. I love that Charles Fillmore, the other co-founder of Unity, in his 90s declared, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that are to be done by me today. Yes. Wow. So this principle of wholeness is working in us to free up any energy that can make us available for zeal and zest, for newness, new love, new life, new expression. And we've been working on that this month, right? We had our white stone ceremony, the releasing melting bowl. I call it the releasing bowl sometimes. And so we have done some clearing and have made space for more wholeness to show up. So I want to share a little bit about the season for peace and nonviolence. And it's a global event, meaning all over the world people tune into this. And it's inspired by the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Mahatma Gandhi. And it spans their memorial anniversaries beginning January 30th to April 4th. And it was created by Mahatma Gandhi's grandson. and the Association for Global New Thought, AGNT. And they started it as a campaign to educate people in ways to attain peace through nonviolent actions. So in the newsletter, there was a link to that where there's all kinds of resources. There's a peace mandala, there's affirmations, there's articles, there's all kinds of things if you're interested to go into that more. It's launched each year at the United Nations, and since its inception has people in over 900 cities and 67 countries have participated in the conscious effort to think, speak, and act more peacefully. So this is a collective consciousness that is great to tune into. So this helps us stay in the we, right? And find a centered place, poised in the Christ presence to face what needs to be faced and to work together to solve any issues that come up, to stay in the we. So we know that peace from the inside out, that's how it works, from the inside out. And this has some, what I really like about this, it has categories, which starts within. And the first week is affirmations for nonviolence towards self. Your first reaction might be, well, I'm not violent to myself. That doesn't apply. But taking a closer look and gentle observation, we can notice any times when our self-talk is critical. We look in the mirror and go, something. Or trying on some clothes that used to fit that don't fit anymore. It can be very subtle, very subtle. Or making self-deprecating jokes about ourselves. So that's the first awareness with this practice, is to be kinder to ourselves, more self-compassionate. And also looking at forgiveness. Sometimes we may be really good at forgiving others. Do we also extend that forgiveness to ourselves? I've read that not forgiving ourselves is like self-torture. Over and over, something in the past that we can't change. So being more forgiving for self and inviting that principle of wholeness to heal what needs to be healed. Whatever that was, to take the lesson from it and place it in the mosaic of our lives instead of banging our head against it. And I thought it was fascinating that some languages don't have a word for guilt. And the Tibetan language does not have a word for guilty. The closest word, the word that comes closest means intelligent regret that decides to do things differently. Isn't that empowering? Yeah. I like Gandhi's full quote. Human greatness lies in being able to remake themselves, and then they will be the change they wish to see in the world. So we all have this ability, this spiritual nature to be made new, be made new. And I love this from a reminder from Romans. Oh yes, we'll come back to that. Don't let the world squeeze you into its own mold, but let God remold your mind from within. The inside out. So this year, we usually have a unity theme for the year. And this year we'll be working with the 12 powers, energizing our 12 spiritual powers. And January's theme is faith. Power is faith, which we've kind of been talking about this month. And so let us have faith in God, in our power of order, to see things right, to set things right, as we allow wholeness in, holiness, more of that in our experience. When Mother Teresa received the Nobel Prize, she was asked what we could do to promote world peace. And do you remember what she said? If you want to change the world, go home and love your family. So what would that look like for you? You know, is there someone who needs your understanding or your love or forgiveness? Is there an amends to make? One of the most powerful phrases that I ran across in relationship with family, two phrases. One, can we have a do-over? And people often really appreciate that, you know, because we've acknowledged that things did not go how we wanted it to go. But we want it to be better. We want to stay connected. And the other one is, what do I need to do to make this right? If you have been the one who's had a misstep or going unconscious with something. I once had told one of my music directors, he was brilliant, like Jack, on the piano, and he would do these ethereal compositions, and I once told him, you're like Yanni on steroids. And his wife kind of looked at me like, I said, oops, that was a big frog. I meant it as can we have a do-over? Let me say that another way. I meant it as a compliment, but it just didn't come out. So we forgive ourselves, we move on, right? And make amends when we can. So even under the best circumstances and in the healthiest relationships, irritations, misunderstandings, unmet expectations show up. So we're in this human dynamic as spiritual beings and doing the best we can and learning and growing. Let's have fun with it, really. There's some things that we get upset about that drive us for change, for positive change. But there's some things, it's like, do I really want to spend energy on that? Do I want to make that a thing? Or can I just let that go?
Yes.
So, we have our spiritual tools when those things come up, right? We can pause, breathe, pray, put on our favorite music to shift us, give us that spiritual chiropractic back into alignment. And get support too, prayer support, counseling support, whatever is needed. And by the way, we're going to have fun in the prayer class in a couple of weeks, so please come to that. We'll have different kinds of prayers that we'll be doing and learning, and we'll also have prayer support for each other in that class. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. So that's why we're starting with self first, right? So we can fill our own well to be able to give from that fullness. The Dalai Lama spoke of friends, and he talked about friends we enjoy being with, good friends. And then he talked about what he called sacred friends. And the sacred friends were people or situations in life that were the hardest to love and the hardest to forgive. Have you had some of those too? And knowing that the greater seeming adversary or obstacle to forgiveness, the greater benefit arrived when we resolved it. And many to look for the gifts when the sacred friends show up. Perhaps a gift is to the opportunity to transcend a polarity of the human experience, to evolve and develop our spiritual muscle, our prayer practice, to free up energy for zest and zeal in our life showing up. I have a friend, a friend that was in my writers group, who passed unexpectedly, and it just was shocking to all of us. She had something she had to go to the emergency for. She had a diagnosis, and she was gone 10 days later. And so it's just a reminder that we're all here to love each other, to play, to find ways to enjoy the life we've been giving while we're here, right? No regrets. So friends and sacred friends. So know that, when stuff comes up, it's there for healing. It comes up to be seen, to be witnessed, and to be released, to let it go. Clearing the heart for greater connection. I like this from writer Mary O'Malley. Life is set up to bring up what has been bound up so it can open up to be freed up so you can show up for life.
Say it again.
Say it again.
Yes, please.
Life is set up to bring up what has been bound up so it can open up to be freed up so you can show up for life.
Yes.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
And this is from her book, and I love this title. What's in the way is the way. Yeah. Day by day, step by step, we follow the dream, right? The dream of oneness for humanity. And Jack, thank you for that beautiful prayer at the end with that. That reminds us, that's our big dream for humanity. So peaceful way showers like Martin Luther King Jr. had that vision and that dream. And he also did so many amazing things. I don't know if you know, but he became a minister and a church leader at 25 years old. Yeah. And he was awarded his PhD a year later.
Wow.
In his career, he traveled over 6 million miles, spoke over 2,500 times, wrote 5 books and numerous articles, was arrested over 25 times, was assaulted at least 4 times, was awarded 5 honorary degrees. I think it's more than 5, I was just reading. And he was named Man of the Year by Time magazine in 1963. And he was greatly influenced by Mahatma Gandhi while in seminary and what he called the Gandhian method of nonviolence. At age 35, he was the youngest man to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And he gave that award of over $54,000 to forward civil rights. So he put his money where his mouth was. That's what that says. I like this quote from John Shedd. When there is an original sound in the world, it awakens 100 echoes. So when you say yes to expressing your zeal and zest and what Spirit is moving in you, that is a sounding that goes out to echo and inspire others. Some of you may know about it, some you will never know the impact. So, the season for peace and nonviolence helps to see for different perspectives, other perspectives. I was remembering this morning when I lived in Sacramento, I used to go to the American River, and there was a spot on this cliff in Fair Oaks where it was a great meditation spot. So I would go there to meditate, and the river would be below, so you could hear the sound of the river. And I remember one Saturday, there was a fishing boat with a motor that was motoring upstream toward Folsom Lake. And there were some horseback riders across the river along the trail. And the horseback riders were yelling at the motorboat person to get out, turn that thing off, get out. They wanted peace and quiet. And then on the bike trail, there's a long bike trail, there are cyclists coming too. And it was just a moment for me of observing different perspectives. All the people had come to the river to enjoy it, to relax. They all had different ways of doing it. The guys in the fishing boat, finally, we get a day off, let's go fishing, get in the boat, and then they didn't expect to get yelled at. The people on the horses, oh good, I get to go with my horse and go out in nature, peace and quiet. They didn't expect the noise. The people on the bikes, going down the bike trail and navigating around the horse paddies. They didn't expect that. But we all learned to be with each other and work around things and then ask for what we want and need, but in a respectful way. So we have this human experience. And I was really amazed. We put these peacemakers on a pedestal, right? But they're human. They're human too, and they had human concerns. And reading this about Dr. King, he suffered from doubts, temptation, fear, and anxiety. You would expect that, right? But he did. In 1955, at the beginning of his activism in Montgomery, he thought about giving up. He was newly married and receiving death threats and hateful phone calls, and he wondered if he could press forward with his civil rights work. He felt he was losing his courage and becoming weak. But then he prayed. Now he was a minister, so then he prayed. And as he prayed, he felt God telling him to stand up for justice, and what he was doing was the right thing. So he was fortified by his faith. He used his spiritual tool of prayer, and listened and followed. So his faith helped him to overcome inner and outer obstacles. And our faith can help us do that too. Your faith can help you do that too. For the inner and outer obstacles, to call on your faith. And then reading about Mahatma Gandhi, famously leading his country non-violently to freedom from British rule, he also wrestled with doubts and fears. When he was a boy, he admitted to being afraid of the dark, and he slept with a nightlight on. And he admits that he was a coward and would not go outside at night. And even after he was married, he was still afraid of the dark and many other things, including ghosts, thieves, and serpents. He wrote about how ashamed he felt that he had less courage than his wife. So he too was human, had many fears and obstacles to overcome. And isn't that inspiring when we look at the human side and know that, spiritually we are perfect. And things show up in life that don't look or feel perfect, but we deal with them in a spiritual way and grow. An old rabbi once asked his students how they could tell when night had ended and day had begun. One of his students asked, "Could it be when you can see an animal in the distance and tell whether it's a sheep or a dog?" "No," said the rabbi. Another asked, is it when you can see a tree in the distance and tell whether it's a fig tree or a peach tree?" "No," said the rabbi. And they all chorused, "And what is it?" The rabbi said, "It is when you can look on the face of any man or woman and see that it is your sister or brother. Because if you cannot see this, it is still night." So let us be part of the dawning of the day of greater consciousness, love, and peace on the planet that Jesus taught. Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. broadcasted and inspired. And let us be the light bearers as well. In the words of Dr. King, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. Yes. So this is Gandhi's peace prayer, and it has hand motions. So I will say it once, and then I'll invite you to do it with me. You might want to stand up for this too. So it goes like this. I offer you peace. I offer you love. I offer you friendship. I see your beauty. I hear your need. I feel your feelings. My wisdom flows from the highest source. I salute that source in you. Let us work together for unity and love. Shall we do this together? I offer you peace. I offer you love. I offer you friendship. I see your beauty. I hear your need. I feel your feelings. My wisdom flows from the highest source. I salute that source in you. Let us work together for unity and love. Amen.